So why is luxury makeup so expensive? There's been a lot of discourse about this recently since Patrick Ta released his $42 eyeshadow duos, but he's far from the first brand to release something like that at that price point. Why was everybody mad at him? I think it was the straw that broke the camel's back. People are tired of paying a premium for everything these days, not just makeup, but everything that we encounter in our daily lives costs more. So when it comes to paying crazy prices for luxury makeup, it seems even more ludicrous. And it didn't help his case when he doubled down and made a video talking about why his formula was so superior.
There has been a lot of conversation around my eyeshadow duos and the pricing, so I wanted to get on here and just talk about the formula. This is a baked formula and you are getting 100% pearl. When you swatch this, I have yet to be able to find a pearl that looks like this, applies like this, and will stay like this. I put them onto my palm. Do you guys see the intensity of this pearl? This is 100% pearl.
Since then, I've seen no less than dozens of videos from people swatching their Patrick Ta shadows next to their less expensive or indie or drugstore formulas. And at the end of the day, what everybody really seems to care about is the end result, what the product actually looks like on your eyes, not whether it contains crushed pearls. And if they can get the same thing for less, why not just spend less money and buy the more affordable product? So in today's video, I'll be talking about the reasons why luxury makeup is so expensive and why I'm calling BS on most of it. So if that sounds good, let's go ahead and jump right in and get started. All right, so before we start, I just want to show you quickly what's in my Shop My Stash advent calendar for today. So this is an idea that I came up with for Vlogmas, and I actually enlisted the help of my 11-year-old son, Henry. I had him come in here and choose 24 random beauty products and put them in these little bags. I haven't seen what's in them, so I thought it'd be fun to just surprise myself with an item from my collection every single day, and then I'm gonna create my makeup look around that. So I'm hoping that he picks some good products. I guess we'll see. So today is day 2. I actually posted yesterday in a short. Since I'm not doing Vlogmas videos on the weekend, I'm going to be doing these in shorts as well. So you can follow it over there on my YouTube shorts. But anyway, today's product is a YSL lipstick. So this is the Love Shine Candy Glow in Brown Nude. So all the makeup that I'm going to be wearing today is going to center around this product, and I'll leave everything that I'm using down in the description box. Okay, so getting back to the topic of the video, these are the reasons why I think luxury makeup is just so expensive. And the first one is pretty obvious. It's all about branding and exclusivity. So luxury brands are creating like an image of sophistication, elegance. People feel like they're buying into like a lifestyle or status, and the perceived value is a big driver of the price tag. The brands have this sort of like you deserve it attitude, so it makes you feel like you're treating yourself to something luxurious. And they can also make the products seem scarce. A lot of times there's limited availability when it comes to these luxury makeup items, or they're only sold in select stores. If you think about a Chantecaille blush or a Chanel lipstick, it feels a little bit more special than a Maybelline lipstick because it's just harder to get them. And these brands tend to rely on their prestige status to make you feel like you're getting something special, something extraordinary, but oftentimes it's not really that much different than drugstore. And another part of that exclusivity, which used to be a lot more common, but these days it's harder to find it, is that when you bought a luxury product, you would also get a luxury experience along with it. In the past, you could only find these luxury brands in stores like Neiman Marcus or Saks Fifth Avenue, and you'd have to go to a makeup counter where someone would wait on you and give you that VIP experience. But nowadays, most of these brands, even brands like Tom Ford, you can find at Sephora. And Kelly Gooch actually did a video about this topic, and it definitely resonated with me because I had that experience myself back when the Dior lip oils were kind of blowing up. I think it was 2 years ago now, and it was in the springtime, and I really wanted a certain color, and they were sold out at Sephora and Ulta, so I went to the Dior website and they had it available there. So I ordered it, and when this package came, I was completely blown away. I opened the outer packaging, and inside there was like all this beautiful tissue paper that had these colorful butterflies all over it, and then I opened the tissue paper, and inside there was a mini Dior shopping bag that had this beautiful like floral design and this raised silver lettering, a purple ribbon. So then I opened that up, and then inside was the lip oil in this little velvet bag. And not only that, they gave me a bunch of deluxe samples with it. It was just overall a really nice experience. And then fast forward a couple of months later, I decided I liked the lip oil and I wanted to try another color, and I ordered it from Ulta along with, I think it was like an e.l.f. mascara or something like that. And when it got to me, it came in just like a bubble mailer, and I opened that up and the products were just kind of thrown inside. And there was no difference between this Dior lip oil and this $7 e.l.f. mascara. So these days when you buy luxury, you're often not getting that luxury experience unless you go directly to the brand themselves or if you buy it from a more high-end retailer. So other than branding and exclusivity, the second reason that brands charge a premium for their products is packaging. And this is probably obvious to most people. A lot of the high-end brands invest in glass packaging versus plastic, or metal compacts, magnetic closures, and they just feel a lot heavier in your hand and more luxurious than the cheaper packaging that you find at the drugstore. Also, a lot of the drugstore packaging can feel like stock packaging that they just ordered from a catalog and slapped their name on it, when the luxury makeup, you can tell that it's like custom designed. It has these beautiful components and the logo with like gold accents or embossed details. So they definitely put a lot more money into the packaging and just the customizing of it. And even the outer packaging, like the box they come in, or for example, Dior, again, they typically, you open the box if you buy a palette, and the palette is inside a velvet pouch. So just the unboxing of the product alone is more of an experience. So luxury brands are charging a premium for that as well. And then in addition to the exclusivity and the packaging, another one that high-end brands want to claim is that they have superior ingredients. Now, oftentimes they'll market a product and say that it has these rare ingredients like crushed pearls or exotic oils or gold flakes. And to me, it's often just marketing fluff because I don't really see any difference when I use products like this. So take, for example, Guerlain's 24 karat gold primer. This is $85 and it has real 24 karat gold flakes in it. But what are those actually doing for your skin other than just leaving specks of gold all over the place? Truthfully, who asked for that? And then you compare it to YSL's Touche Éclat primer, which also has little gold specks in it, but they're not real gold, and it's $30 cheaper, and I actually like that primer better. So most of the time, I feel like these rare ingredients are really just a gimmick. And again, if you look back to the Patrick Ta eyeshadows, those pearls that he mentioned might cost more, but do they really have a different effect on your eyes than something like the ColourPop Super Shock Shadow in the shade Ritz, which I'm actually going to be using today? This is beautiful and it gives a gorgeous crushed pearl effect. And while I don't own the Patrick Ta shadows, I've seen enough swatches of them on social media everywhere to know that they really don't look that much different than this. Another thing that makeup brands do to try to drive up the cost is say that their products contain skincare or anti-aging ingredients, but I definitely call BS on this this one because a lot of the time these skincare ingredients are just extracts that are way down at the bottom of the ingredient list in not high enough quantities to really do anything for your skin. And I always say that I don't need my makeup to have skincare in it because I already use skincare on my skin, under my makeup. So I really don't need a product to have these anti-aging ingredients in it because A, it's likely not going to make an effect on my skin anyway, and B, I likely already use the same ingredients in much higher quantities in my skincare. Another thing that luxury brands love to do is include these high-end fragrances in their products. And to me, I would rather just have unscented makeup. Even this YSL balm that I used in today's video has a floral scent. And the very last thing that I want to do is feel like I'm eating a bunch of flowers. It's just not cute. So while it may be important to some people to have fragrance in their makeup, I feel like it's a detractor for a lot of others. And at the end of the day, I know a lot of luxury brands can say that they have superior ingredients than the drugstore version, but it's often not the case. And another thing that luxury brands love to do is come up with a story for their ingredients to make it seem a little more special or exclusive. Take La Mer, for example. La Mer skincare is crazy expensive, and they have that whole story about the aerospace physicist Max Huber who invented their miracle broth after he had, burns from a fire, from a lab accident, and that it supposedly healed his burns even though it was several years later. And this miracle broth that it has is basically fermented sea kelp, but a lot of the other ingredients line up almost exactly with the Nivea cream, which is super inexpensive. I think both of these have a mineral oil base, which is actually a very inexpensive ingredient. So I think that story about La Mer healing the scientist's wounds makes people feel like it's going to work a miracle on their skin as well. But from everyone I've heard from who's tried La Mer, they basically say it's really overhyped. Another example is Laura Mercier's loose powder. This one also has a cult following, but if you look at the ingredient list, it's really not that much different from Maybelline's Fit Me loose powder at the drugstore. And at the end of the day, when it comes to ingredients, I think almost everything is made up of just a few different base formulas. Like there's only so many ways you can make an eyeshadow or a blush or a lipstick. It's just that some of the high-end brands tend to add these additives and these skincare ingredients, and they do this so that they can claim on the label that they're in there, but are they really doing that much more? Not necessarily. And I know that there are some people who will argue that high-end makeup does feel nicer than drugstore makeup, and that can be true. I have experienced that, but I've also experienced the flip side where I try a drugstore formula and it's absolutely fantastic, like the L'Oreal Infallible Bronzer or the NYX Buttermelt blushes. Those feel like high-end formulas to me, and on the flip side, I've tried high-end stuff that feels cheap, like drugstore. So sometimes I feel like it's less about cost and more about the actual formulas that the brands are using and picking when they go to a lab. Okay, so now we covered branding, packaging, ingredients. The fourth thing is research and development. And this one, I think, people don't always think about this too much, but this is where I can kind of see a valid reason for a cost increase. So luxury brands are usually at the forefront of developing new formulas, new technologies, and it honestly costs a lot of money to go to a lab and come up with a brand new formula that's never been done before. It also costs a lot of time and money to have a team come up with new concepts, and a lot of the time we're seeing the high-end brands come up with these ideas first, and then a year later or so, we see the drugstore brands coming out with it. And the drugstore brands at that point really don't have to do too much. They don't have to come up with the concept. They just sort of put their own twist on what's already existing. And same thing with the formula. They can take the high-end formula to a lab and then ask them to make something similar. So they definitely don't have to invest the time or the money in a product like the high-end companies do. But it's not to say that drugstore brands don't come up with their own concepts, because they absolutely do. Again, I'll use the example of ColourPop Super Shock Shadow. This was kind of like a revolutionary idea at the time when these came out. Nobody at the drugstore was doing cream eyeshadows quite like this. But ColourPop also has some advantages that other drugstore brands don't have, in that they own their own manufacturing plant and they can come up with ideas and make it right, like all in in-house. They don't have to go to an outside lab. So it doesn't cost them as much. And I feel like that's an easy way to keep their prices low. But I do think R&D is one of the few areas where I feel like luxury brands have a right to charge a little bit more because they did come up with the idea and come up with a unique formula. So reason number 5 why luxury brands are so expensive would be marketing. And marketing is a huge part of their budget, I'm sure. A lot of the high-end brands use celebrities to endorse their products, or they're giving influencers these crazy expensive gifts or trips to review their products. But at the same time, it's not always the high-end brands that do this. Think about e.l.f. doing that Super Bowl ad with Jennifer Coolidge. I mean, that couldn't have been cheap for them, and they're actually a really inexpensive brand, but they put a lot of money into that ad, and who knows if it paid off for them. But even sinking all of that money into that campaign, not to mention that Super Bowl ads are just expensive by themselves without the celebrity, and e.l.f. still manages to keep their prices pretty low. So I can't say that marketing alone is a good reason for brands to charge exorbitant prices for their products, but it definitely contributes to it somewhat. Personally, I would rather the brands not spend all of this money on marketing, but I get it. I mean, they have to sell their products. And in today's oversaturated beauty market, you have to stand out for sure. Everybody wants to go viral. But at the same time, I also feel like if the products are really good and they can stand on their own, you don't necessarily need to like buy off influencers and send them on these fancy trips or buy them Birkin bags, because if you just send them PR, which costs these brands almost nothing, and they try it out and they like it, they're going to talk about it and promote the products for very little cost. So when brands feel like they have to kind of pay off influencers with these fancy trips and gifts, it just kind of makes me wonder, is the product actually that good? It makes me think of the Tier red cushion. I did buy into the hype. I admit it, I fell for it. And I know some people do like it, but I did not feel like it was the be-all, end-all that everybody was saying. I thought it sat really heavy on my skin. It was like a mask. And maybe it's just a personal preference thing because I don't love a really full coverage, really heavy foundation. But when I look back on that, it kind of felt like it was more about hype and like needing to try this viral product than it was about people actually saying this product is really good, look what it did for my skin. It wasn't like real reviews. It was just all hype at the end of the day. All right, so then reason number 6 is production costs. And this, I think, could be important to a lot of people. Luxury brands, I think, they produce in smaller quantities than mass market does. So that's going to increase the total cost of the product per unit. If you go to any wholesale distributor, no matter what the product is, you'll see that the price changes depending on how many units you buy. So if a brand is buying 10,000 units of something, let's say it could cost them $7. If they're buying 50,000 units, it might cost them $4 per. And then if they're buying 100,000 units, it goes down to $2. So if a brand is making a very limited run of something and they're not buying a lot, right away the price per unit increases a lot. And not only does that go for the raw ingredients and the finished product itself, but also the packaging, because they're not ordering as much packaging. So in every step of manufacturing that product, the cost is going to go up a little bit if they're not making as much as, say, like e.l.f. with their Soft Glam foundation. They might be making hundreds of thousands or even 1 million units of this, you don't know. But then something like the Patrick Ta foundation, he's a much smaller company, so he might only be making a fraction of that amount. So I think it really just depends on the amount that they're going to be producing. And another thing is that high-end products are often manufactured in regions that are known for high quality control and labor costs, like Italy and France, while some drugstore brands like e.l.f. are made in China, where labor costs are a lot lower. But it should be noted, because I know a lot of people say, well, drugstore brands all manufacture in China. It's not true. L'Oreal, Maybelline, Revlon, CoverGirl, ColourPop, they're all made in the United States. So we also have stricter quality control laws, we have labor laws, we have a minimum wage. So that could be the reason why those brands like L'Oreal and CoverGirl are charging a little bit more for their products than brands like e.l.f. are. But at the same time, they're also not charging what the high-end brands are charging. I think they're cutting their costs in other places, like with the packaging. So for a lot of people, where a product is made made is really important. And especially I think when it comes to China, we've seen so many brands like Shein come under fire for paying workers next to nothing and making them work in horrible conditions, both long hours and just really dirty, filthy environments. Now, I'm not saying that all makeup made in China is bad. Obviously, some of it is not. I use e.l.f. products and some other more well-known brands. I think you just have to be careful and buy from well-known, reputable brands and not buy these kind of no-name dupe brands or products that are so inexpensive they're too good to be true. So all of this to say, when you buy a luxury makeup product, it likely did cost a little bit more to produce, both in terms of the labor costs and the materials. I think it's gonna look and feel prettier than a drugstore product is going to. And it's also more likely to have been the result of more research and development. So I think those are definitely valid reasons to drive up the price point a little bit. But built into the rest of the price are these arbitrary things like fancy ingredients that probably don't do too much, but just claiming that they're in there lets the brand charge way more for their products, or the perceived value of owning a luxury product and feeling that prestige when you pull it out of your purse. That's not really tangible, and you can't really calculate how much that actually adds to the product. Like you can calculate the cost of the materials or the packaging and research and development and things like that. So getting back to the Patrick Ta example, do you think the fancy packaging and the added cost of making them in Italy and the crushed pearls that are in the formula make it that much more desirable than something like this ColourPop Super Shock Shadow that I'm wearing on my eyes today, that I think gives about the same effect for around $7? Granted, this compact isn't going to give me that same luxury experience that the Patrick Ta one would, but I guess that's where I'm kind of leaving it up to you guys to let me know how you feel about all of this. Do you think that luxury makeup is worth the extra cost? Do you think that it actually performs better than drugstore makeup? Do you prefer luxury packaging? I would love to hear your thoughts on this down in the comments below. Personally, I am a drugstore girl at heart, and while I love luxury makeup and I can appreciate it, and every once in a while I do like to treat myself, I often get the products home, and once I start using them, I feel kind of foolish for paying all of that extra money when I have other things from the drugstore that perform pretty close, or if not exactly, I feel like I can still make them work to get the same results. But that's just my personal opinion. I always love to hear what you guys are thinking, and as always, I want to thank you all so much for taking time out of your day to watch this video. Be sure to subscribe so that you don't miss out on Vlogmas. I'm going to be posting a video every day of the week, Monday through Friday, through December 24th. So I hope you'll stick around. And if you have some extra time and you want to watch another video, I'll just put some right over there that you could check out next. Thank you guys so much. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye, guys.